My Lords, I will be opposing this bill, but some broader observations first. Recently, one commentator wrote that it feels like class war has broken out on the streets of London. Working people, fighting for their right to do their jobs and attend to their daily business, are being hindered from doing so by catastrophising eco-warriors. Each of their nihilistic stunts seems aimed at causing maximum chaos to the public. Hugely infuriating delays, total inconvenience are indeed their tactics. And then there are the aims, which seem to me to be misanthropic, to say the least. They are that society should cease all production of fossil fuel energy in the middle of an energy crisis. While millions are worried they can't afford to keep the heat on this winter, here's a minority movement demanding the government produce less energy. When allies of the protesters warn they may alienate the public, they miss the point, because the whole movement is not interested in the public. They don't care if they alienate or inconvenience ordinary people. That's the point, to grind us down until we give in to their demands. I recently engaged with some superglued activists. When I pointed out how desperate locals were just wanting to get to work and pleaded with them to let them through, I was told by one that it was shocking that so many were driving to work as a single person in an empty car. When I see London citizens dragging protesters off the roads and screaming abuse at the selfish road hoggers. But it's a dilemma. I'm keen on direct action, but obviously vigilantism is a result of a collapse of public order, and that's a problem. One clip of an exasperated workman shouting, "Where's the police? What are we paying our taxes for? To have our lives inconvenienced by these idiots? This is wrong." And that man is right to be exasperated, to say, where are the police? What are we paying our taxes for? The question we face here is what's gone wrong in terms of the authorities not sorting this problem out. The Minister claims these protests are taking up excessive hours and resources from the police. Well, you'd fool me. The police seem slow, reticent, as someone earlier said, softly, softly. As someone pointed out to me, if you want swift, hardline police intervention, post a gender-critical tweet and they'll clamp down on you as a hate criminal before you can draw a breath. The government says we need this bill and all these new offences in order to solve things. But why would it make any difference when the police won't use the laws they already have to solve things? All of the complained of tactics could be dealt with by criminal offences already on the statute books, and they're not being. The question is, why aren't those laws being used effectively? So I think we have a broader crisis of policing. I think this bill is not, as some have claimed, a culture wars bill at all. I think it's a weak defensive invasion of the political authority by the government of tackling this crisis of policing. Instead of action, we get performative legislation, just as attention-seeking as those dousing London's finest architecture in orange paint. Both sides saying, look at me, I'm doing something. It's also a con, telling the public that these laws will narrowly be targeted at nuisance protesters. But actually, they're so broad and all-encompassing that anyone's right to protest or dissent on any issue is being put at jeopardy. Perhaps you might take at face value those very specific new offences, such as locking on or tunnelling, although 3 years in prison for, quote, being present in a tunnel does seem a tad disproportionate. But consider the possible uses of Clause 19 and 20 with its serious disruption orders or the protest banning orders. These can be doled out to anyone who's been on more than one protest over the last 5-year period, and that certainly counts me in. If you issued one of these orders, you can be banned from going to a particular place, banned from associating with particular people, banned from encouraging someone else and going on a demo, banned from using the internet in a particular way, i.e. you can be punished by the state for retweeting an advert for a protest. You can also be issued with an electronic tag for up to 12 months using GPS data technology, allowing the police to monitor your whereabouts for 24 hours a day. That extreme level of surveillance for individuals is aimed at explicitly innocent people who have not committed a crime. We should not allow these anti-democratic laws to be passed, just to allow the Home Office to paper over the cracks of policing failures. This was the point made by Conservative MP Charles Walker, already quoted, in a scorching speech in the other place at committee stage. He said the government's attraction to serious disruption or prevention orders demonstrates our own impotence as legislators and the impotence of the police as law enforcers to get to grips with the laws already in place to enforce them. This impotence is now being covered up by creating unnecessary laws, and it seriously threatens the reputational damage to the rule of law, which is already fragile. Finally, no matter how much we despise protesters, we must have consistency in lawmaking. So why, oh why, have so many on opposition benches been celebrating the government's acceptance of amendments banning protests around abortion clinics? As a long-standing pro-choice campaigner, of course, I believe it's totally vital that women are able to safely access reproductive healthcare services. If they're being obstructed or harassed, we have public order laws to deal with this, and we should deal with them harshly. But Clause 9 criminalises and bans, as we've already heard, seeking to influence, advising or persuading, attempting to advise or persuade, or otherwise expressing an opinion. Many of us may feel little sympathy with people who are viewed as anti-abortion cranks, but as Big Brother Watch notes, this sets a precedent that will inevitably lead to attempts to prevent speech, expression, information sharing and assembly in relation to other controversial and unpopular causes. It's also worth noting that at least 5 councils with PSPO buffer zones around abortion clinics have banned silent prayers. This institutes a law of genuine thought crime and betrays any commitment to religious freedom, and we should totally oppose it. So in conclusion, I support the right to protest for all, not just the protesters I admire, but those I despise as well.
My Lords, I rise to speak briefly.